Welcome back. We are on question number 12, and we are talking, although Ibram is not opposed in the abstract to free markets, competition, free trade, supply and demand, and private ownership of the means of production operating for profit, he questions whether all of that can be disentangled from all the theft and racism and sexism and imperialism that has historically accompanied the rise of capitalism. I was sharing with Pastor a few minutes ago. This is a tough one for me, primarily because the slave trade was built on capitalism. It's all about money and power. Racism is about power and control. And it's hard for me to imagine a world where white people are willing to give up control and power. And the one who holds the money bag makes all of the decisions, is my take on American capitalism. And I referenced the current place that we are now with COVID-19 and how it has affected our society. And while that disease has disproportionately affected Black and Brown communities, people like Jeff Bezos with Amazon have increased their net worth by billions. And so you can see how those two issues are different. One community suffers while another community gets richer. And this, to me, seems to be the way that the world works. So as Dr. Kendi mentions in the book, how can you love capitalism and not love racism? How can you love the free markets and not love and acknowledge the fact that most of those markets are designed and set up against Black and Brown people? And so this is a tough question for me because intellectually I want to try to understand what a free market is and what regulation is and what non-regulation is. But at my heart, I say capitalism is power, racism is power, and the two cannot be devoid of one another.
So would you consider yourself an anti-capitalist?
Tricky question. I want to say yes, based on Dr. Kendi's book. But intellectually, I understand how capitalism works and the need for it to work.
Yeah. To me, this is the most debatable and provocative chapter we've had so far because in his terminology, he's sort of pitting that to be an anti-racist, you need to be an anti-capitalist. But he also defines capitalism as being opposed to regulation, as being opposed to higher taxation of rich people. And he acknowledges that that people who want to, that it is possible to regulate capitalism or to attempt to regulate it, and that he seems to be okay with that. So I'm not being very articulate, but where I come out on this is to say I am anti-racist, I am not anti-capitalist, but I'm using a different definition of capitalism than he is. My definition would be generally free markets with significant government regulation that includes policies that are meant to keep the rich from continuing to get richer, that are meant to give equal opportunity and even do some redistribution from the top to the bottom. So I would favor a regulated capitalism, and if it's regulated with an eye toward adjusting for the racism, the racist history that feeds into capitalism, then I'd be okay with it. But
that's a stretch because, as he mentions in the book, there'd have to be some admission that the current policies are racist. In order to have policies that are anti-racist, we'd have to say, yes, there's racism that already exists. And I don't know that would, are we there yet? Are people in power willing to admit that the way the system is set up does not benefit Black and brown people?
Right. I don't think most policy leaders today are, but I think that's part of the to and fro in our current politics and people arguing that we need a more progressive approach to economics that does take account of history and the history of racism and how it has skewed the deck. But these are fraught and complicated issues, but critically important. You can't talk about how to cure racism without talking about economics. So good luck in your conversations.